Most people think awareness protects them. It doesn't. Seeing the trap and still walking into it, that's not ignorance. That's having no shield. You felt it, a conversation that left you confused, smaller, somehow apologizing. You sensed something was wrong. It still worked on you. That's not weakness. You were simply out-equipped. 5 defensive shields exist that stop manipulation completely, each one more powerful than the last. Most people have none of them built. By the end, you will. Awareness. Most people think awareness means knowing manipulation exists, watching for red flags, reading articles about toxic behavior. That is not it. Here's what's actually happening. Real awareness is not a state of mind. It is a daily practice. It is training yourself to ask one question in the moment. Whose interest is this conversation really serving? Not after you get home, not at midnight when you're replaying it, right now, while it's happening. Someone is being unusually warm, overly agreeable, deeply interested in everything you say, and part of you wants to lean in. Real awareness pauses and asks, what does this person actually want here? That one question changes everything. A manipulator's only goal is to keep you reacting instead of thinking. Awareness shuts that down before it starts. So what do? Walk into every important conversation with one assignment. Watch the dynamic, not just the words. Don't just hear what's being said. Notice how the exchange is being steered. The moment you shift from participant to observer, you are no longer an easy target. That is your first shield, and without it, none of the others will hold. Boundaries. Everyone talks about boundaries. Set them, communicate them, stand firm. That is not it. Here's what's actually happening. A boundary is not a statement you make. It is a consequence you were fully prepared to follow through on every single time. You told someone how you expect to be treated. They crossed that line, and you explained yourself. Again, that is not a boundary. That is a preference they have learned they can ignore. The second you negotiate your own boundary, it's gone. A manipulator is not afraid of your words. They are testing whether your actions match them. That is exactly the point. So what do? Before you set any boundary, ask yourself honestly, will I actually enforce this if they push back? If the answer is no, don't say it out loud. Quiet restraint is stronger than a line you won't hold. Set fewer boundaries, make each one non-negotiable. One boundary you actually enforce does more than 100 conversations ever will. Detachment. People think detachment means shutting your feelings off, being cold, distant, hard to reach. That is not it. Here's what's actually happening. Detachment is not the absence of emotion. It is the decision not to let your emotions become a handle someone else can grab. Every manipulator is looking for the same thing. What do you need? Approval, validation, calm, closure. Whatever you need, they will make themselves the only door to it. You have sat in conversations that were draining you dry because you needed them to end a certain way. You needed to feel heard, to come across as the reasonable one. So you kept explaining, kept defending, kept trying, and they kept taking. Your need for resolution was the engine keeping it running. Detachment cuts the fuel line. So what do? The moment a conversation starts pulling you toward a feeling you need to fix, stop. Identify it clearly inside your own head. Right now, I need this person's approval. Then, make your next move without it. You do not need closure from the person who opened the wound. Once you stop needing their validation to move forward, the loop ends. That is your third shield, and it changes the game entirely. Verification. Most people think trust works in 2 positions. You either trust someone or you don't. That is not it. Here's what's actually happening. Trust without verification is not loyalty, it is an open door. Manipulators operate on one core assumption, that you will take their word for it, that checking would feel rude, that documenting would seem paranoid, that asking for confirmation in writing would come across as offensive. They work hard to make you feel that way.
So when the story changes, your version sounds unstable. Theirs sounds clean because they rehearsed it and you trusted them instead. The confusion you felt afterward was not accidental, it was the strategy. So what do? After any agreement that matters, write it down. Not as a confrontation, not as an accusation, simply wanted to quickly confirm what we agreed on today. One message, one record, one sentence. That is not paranoia, that is protection. In the moment a paper trail exists, plausible deniability disappears. But all of this was leading somewhere darker: connection. Most people believe isolation only happens to people who are struggling or socially cut off, that confident, well-connected people are immune. That is not it. Here's what's actually happening. Isolation is not a room with a locked door. It is a slow, quiet removal of every relationship that doesn't benefit the person controlling you. It starts like this: small comments about your closest friends. Nothing dramatic, just a seed. Gentle suggestions that your family doesn't really get you the way they do. Passing remarks that your coworkers feel threatened by your success. Month by month, not overnight, your circle gets smaller. And you don't catch it because every single step felt reasonable at the time. One dinner you skipped, one friendship that slowly faded, one family gathering that felt like too much effort. Then one day you look around, and the only consistent person left in your life is them. That is not closeness. That is a constructed cage. They were never after your time or your attention. They wanted you unreachable. So what do? Guard your relationships the same way you guard your most sensitive information, intentionally, consistently, without needing a specific reason to justify it. Reach out to someone you haven't talked to in a while, not because something is wrong, because your connections are the one shield no manipulator can dismantle from the outside. An isolated person is a controllable person. A person with real connections cannot be contained. 5 shields, all yours now. Awareness spots the play. Boundaries end the negotiation. Detachment cuts the fuel. Verification kills the ambiguity. Connection breaks the cage. They needed you blind, reactive, isolated, and unverified. You are none of those things anymore. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who cannot be manipulated. That is now you.